United Nations. There may be different views on multilateralism, but I hope that this open debate is not intended to divide us rather than unite us. No single member state can solve today's global challenges alone. We need a collective multilateral response. Multilateralism functions only when member states work together based on mutual trust and cooperation, consistent with the purposes and principles of the United Nations. It is an irony, even a tragedy, that the Russian Federation, a permanent member of the Security Council, continues its unilateral aggression against Ukraine while hosting an open debate on effective multilateralism through the defense of the principle of the UN Charter on the very International Day of Multilateralism and Diplomacy for Peace. The unprovoked ongoing aggression by Russia is nothing but outright defiance of the principle of the UN Charter. The relentless use or threat of use of the veto that has accompanied this aggression has blocked the Security Council from making decisions, paralyzing and discrediting the Council when the world needs it most to fulfill its responsibility. Russia must first and foremost withdraw all its troops and equipment from the territory of Ukraine within its internationally recognized borders immediately and unconditionally. That has been the repeated demand of the General Assembly, supported by 141 votes, the overwhelming majority of the member states. Let me be clear. Any attempt to unilaterally change a peacefully established status of territories by force or coercion should not be tolerated anywhere in the world. Also, any statement to deny sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of Ukraine, neighboring countries, or any other member state should not be tolerated, especially those by a permanent member of this Council. The concept note of this open debate circulated by Russia does not mention a single word regarding Ukraine, nor the aggression against it, and instead just criticizes many other past crises and invasions. There is no country with a flawless historical record. All of us should squarely face that reality and be humble about it. But having said that, it would be a misuse and politicization of the word multilateralism if it was solely meant to criticize selectively chosen unilateral actions of other countries. Such a narrative, in an attempt to garner support for one's own camp and legitimize one's actions, would only create further division among us and undermine the rule of law and multilateralism itself. Revitalizing and upholding multilateralism is more important than ever. Let us remind ourselves, this is not the first time we have been divided. Every previous time, we found a path to overcome our divisions. So let us go back to the starting point, the purposes and principles enshrined in the UN Charter and the rule of law underpins effective multilateralism in a world of diversity. This is why Foreign Minister Hayashi reiterated his call for uniting for the rule of law in this chamber in January. This is why Japan promotes the rule of law in the Security Council and beyond. International law, including the Charter and the resolutions of the UN, must be respected, abided by, and implemented in good faith by all. The UN should continue to be the bulwark of multilateralism. The Security Council should lead the work, not hamper it. We have to admit, the UN has never been perfect. Nonetheless, we all need the UN at the core of multilateralism. We have to strengthen the function of the UN through reform to better reflect today's reality rather than that of almost 80 years ago, just as reminded by the Secretary General in his briefings. It is long overdue since the world leaders declared in one voice the necessity of an early reform of the Security Council in 2005. We should redouble our efforts to achieve this goal at the earliest. Japan fully supports the Secretary General's initiative in our common agenda and will continue to actively and constructively participate in discussions on the new agenda for peace. I hope that the ambitious recommendations by the High-Level Advisory Board will promote lively discussions among the member states. The future of the United Nations and multilateralism depend upon us, the member states. Let us seize it together. I thank you.
Спасибо.
Thank you. I thank the representative of Japan, and I give the floor to the representative of France.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. President, built on the ruins of the Second World War, the international multilateral order, which was as created by the United Nations Charter, is an instrument for the advancement of peace. It is based on such principles as the sovereign equality of states, respect for international law, non-use of force, and peaceful dispute resolution. These principles are currently being flouted and violated. Multilateralism means accepting to comply with the rules which we contributed collectively to drafting and which we all chose to adhere to. For the preservation of international peace and security, we must all respect our shared charter and the collective security system which it has established, which is rooted in respect for law. We recall that the use of force, except for legitimate defense, is outlawed. However, for Russia, the rules of law and principles undergirding multilateralism appear to no longer apply. Russia illegally used force in Georgia in 2008, in Crimea, and in Donbass in 2014, and for more than 1 year, this has been the case in Ukraine. Russia has been violating the core principles of international order, the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine, international humanitarian law by deliberately targeting and systematically targeting civilians, international human rights law by deporting Ukrainian children and engaging in other atrocities, by violating arms embargoes imposed by the Security Council, by procuring drones from Iran to indiscriminately bomb Ukrainian civilian infrastructure, thereby also violating Resolution 2231, which was adopted in 2015 by the Security Council. The General Assembly of the United Nations unequivocally and by an overwhelming majority condemned these violations of our charter. The General Assembly, among other things, called on the Russian Federation to end immediately its aggression and to withdraw its troops. If Russia genuinely wishes to uphold multilateralism, the Russian Federation must respect the rules of international order, and the Russian Federation must cease its violations of the Charter. If Russia genuinely wishes to uphold multilateralism, it must end its war of aggression, which has unleashed dire consequences for both Ukraine and the entire world. If Russia genuinely wishes to defend multilateralism, they must immediately withdraw troops from Ukrainian soil. If the Russian Federation genuinely wishes to uphold multilateralism, they must initiate in good faith in a quest for peace. If Russia genuinely wishes to uphold multilateralism, then Russia must uphold the rulings delivered by international jurisdictions, such as the International Court of Justice, which explicitly, on 16 March 2022, issued a ruling in the face of other challenges, including security challenges, health challenges, environmental, technological challenges. In the face of these challenges, only collective responses can deliver solutions.